When we think about quality management in the United States, it was after the end of the Second World War, there was a sense of complacency in companies in the United States in terms of the products that they were making. The markets were doing well, their products were selling, customers were tolerating quality defects. Customers were tolerating things going wrong. Even companies were tolerating defects. They were inspecting things at the end and were okay with finding a certain percentage of defects because they could charge more in terms of charging extra for that low yield that they had in their production. And American companies didn't really wake up to the need for total quality management, for the idea that they needed to control quality at source until there was competition, mainly from Japan, in terms of technology, in terms of managing quality, and in terms of offering things at low prices to customers, that the Japanese companies woke up and they said, well, we need to get on this bandwagon of quality management as well. So not to treat this idea of a bandwagon in a skeptical way, it was the right thing to do, in the sense that if you want to make continuous sustained progress towards offering better things to customers, you have to make quality management the base of any kind of development that you're going to do. So these are the philosophers that I have listed here, that you see over here, that were responsible for giving some of the ideas which became the basis for total quality management for quality management systems. So here I have a definition of quality management systems based on my own research. And quality management systems are taking the ideas of all of these philosophers that you saw earlier and converting them into real things that companies can do. So taking all the principles that these philosophers were talking about and translating them into things that everyone in each company, right from the front line to top management, needs to think about. So quality management systems are systematic efforts to distinguish from ad hoc efforts, right? That's the idea. It's not somebody thinking about, here's a better way of making this, let me just try it out, especially if it's going to be in a part of a larger organization. You can see the problems there in terms of coordination if one person tries to make ad hoc improvements to their particular task. So quality management systems are systematic ways of getting everybody together and thinking about quality and moving in the direction of good quality. They're also about continuous quality improvement. So the idea that quality management is not a one-shot deal. It's not something that you say, we have reached good quality. It's a continuous journey. If you think about the comprehensive definition of quality, it's about giving customers what they need, and that is something that changes over time. That gets better and better over time in terms of what they expect. They expect better things in terms of the cost of the product. They expect better things in terms of the durability of the product. So it's a dynamic kind of thing that you need to think about when you're thinking about quality management. It's a moving goal in that sense. So here's a question for you. As customers, you may have seen some kind of quality marks on different products. You may have seen some kind of quality mark on the letterhead of a company. So for example, let me give you an example here to make clear what the question is. You may have heard of this LEED certification, which is a certification given to buildings that are built based on green practices. And if you pass all the tests for their certification, you are able to put that mark on your building, and you're able to advertise that to your customers that you have a building that thinks about the notion of, or that has complied with the notion of it being a green building, a sustainable environment kind of a building. So think about some other kinds of certifications that you may have encountered, and we'll come back and see if you've been able to come up with a few. All right, you must have thought about this question for a minute, so let's take a look at some examples that I have that may ring a bell for you. So in Europe, we have the certification that's popular called the ISO, or certification, and it's a series of certifications. ISO 9000 is a series that deals with quality certifications. ISO 14000 deals with environment compliance certification. In the US, we have this certification from the US Food and Drug Administration that certifies that good manufacturing practices are being used. And if you think about it, what is that certification doing? It's assuring customers who are buying things like pharmaceuticals, who are buying things like food, and who need to know that the manufacturers have complied with the regulations, the clean room environments, the lack of contamination in anything, or keeping contamination away, in other words. And that's something that you get based on the stamp of approval that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, gives them. Another kind of certification that you may have heard of is the ENERGY STAR certification that in the US you see on appliances, on refrigerators, on your heaters, your furnaces, and those kinds of things, is giving you a certification. The ENERGY STAR certification is telling people that these are efficient appliances. In India, you have the certification called the ISI, and it's based on the Indian standards, and they are basically telling you that there are some minimum standards that this company is following, and that's why you're able to put that mark on the packaging of your product. You're able to put that mark on your letterhead. So what is this? What is the importance of this? The importance of this is that it's giving consumers the assurance that a company is following the guidelines for manufacturing that product that they should be following, and it's giving the customer some assurance of that. So that's one way of assuring that good quality is being maintained from the producer's perspective. Another way in which companies try to portray that they are active, they are proactive in quality management, is applications for awards. So this was popularized in Japan by the Deming Award. It's an award that's given to companies that not just produce good quality products. It's about having processes in place, having a system in place that shows that they are continually thinking about improving their processes to make better quality products. So it's about process quality, not just about product quality. In the US, we have the Baldrige Award. It's called the MBNQA Award, Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, and it gets after the same thing. So the idea of these awards is to give a snapshot. At this point, this company seems to be following these criteria, and that's why they get the award. Similarly, the EFQM Award in Europe, and then the Shingo Prize, which is also a US-based prize that's given to companies. So the idea is that the company is following the requirements of that award. And the nice thing about these awards is that just the fact that companies apply for these awards makes them aware of some of the things that they should be doing from a quality management perspective. And so even if they might not win the award, the application process gets them to think about quality in a serious way, gets employees involved. They get more excited about this idea of quality management. And what has been shown that they get more bought into the objectives of the company if they see that the company cares about quality for customers. So in order to appreciate the idea of quality management as we see it today, it's worthwhile for us to trace the evolution of quality management systems. So quality management systems, as we saw earlier, these are systems that are put in place in companies and organizations for them to think about quality management in a long-term way, in a continuous way, in a sustained way. In the 1970s, we had things like quality circles. We had SPC, which stands for Statistical Process Control. So the emphasis was on quality control, controlling the quality of products. Then they also got into this idea of self-managed teams, so involving employees in controlling the quality of the products. All of that got combined into this idea of total quality management, or TQM, where you're thinking about not just employee involvement in terms of quality improvement. You're also thinking about the customer perspective. What are customers expecting, and how do we incorporate that? you're also thinking about it from a supply chain perspective. You're not just thinking about it from how can this company offer good quality, but what can we do in terms of our suppliers and our customers. And that has become even more important today, thinking about suppliers and your buyers from the point of view of globalization of markets. Just-in-time kind of systems became popular in the 1980s, and the idea there was you make products just in time, you don't keep excess inventory, which in turn forces you to make good quality, because what is inventory? It can be used as a buffer when you have not so good quality. So the JIT movement, or the just-in-time movement, also gets at the idea of forcing you to have good quality, because then otherwise you are going to run short because you don't have buffers. The Baldrige framework you already talked about. The idea of the theory of constraints, the idea of focusing on the bottleneck task and then trying to improve that bottleneck task, and then going back and finding the next bottleneck and then improving on that in a continuous fashion, was also popularized in the 1980s. In the recent times, we've got external agencies like the ISO getting involved in it. We've got external agencies that are giving out certifications like the Capability Maturity Model, or CMMI as it is known popularly. And then we also have Lean and Six Sigma, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then you have agile technologies that are popular when you're talking about software development. So what you can see here is that the idea of quality management has evolved over the years, and we seem to be coming up with new ways of quality management systems, new quality management systems that we put in place in organizations. So the question that you should be asking is why? Why do we have this evolution? I mean, quality management is about employees getting involved. It's about asking what the customer wants. It's about quality control, making things right the first time. Why do we need these different programs, these different initiatives that have been coming, emerging through the years? Is it just a gimmick? Is it just something that because it's new, it comes into fashion, or what is it? And the perspective that you can have about this is that there is a reason for this. And one of the reasons that I offer here is that it's hard. It's hard to do all these things, and that's why we seem to be inventing new ways of getting people involved in quality management, of putting in place a good, sustainable quality management system that can be continued over a long period of time. Quality management needs cross-functional work, as you will see in the next few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about who else is involved in quality management other than the manufacturing organization or the service delivery organization. Operational improvements are not talked about too much. You usually talk about mergers and alliances in companies. You don't talk about what companies are able to achieve as a result of their quality improvement initiatives. So there is not too much publicity given to them, and that's why it's hard to get people involved, and that's why we seem to come up with new ways of trying to put in place a quality management system. Metrics, operational metrics, we don't publicize them too much. They're supposed to be internal knowledge. We talk about cost accounting metrics that stay inside the company. We don't talk about them in balance sheets and in annual reports. And also this idea of should we be focusing on improvement? That seems to be a constant struggle, is if we focus too much on improvement, are we giving up on innovation? If we focus too much on quality control and quality improvement, are we saying that we're going to encourage a culture that stays away from innovation, from getting creative ideas out there? And my belief, at least, is that this struggle, this trying to balance these things, is what has led to many of these new initiatives, such as Lean and Six Sigma, and then Design for Six Sigma, and then trying to put in place a system that sort of takes care of this idea of quality control, quality improvement, and innovation at the same time. So as we said earlier, quality is linked to all of the other functions in the company. So when you're talking about quality management, you have to incorporate customer feedback. you have to assess the value of changes. You don't make quality improvements just for the sake of making quality improvements unless they make sense in terms of are they going to give us more sales? Are they going to give us lesser costs? Are we going to be able to work with lesser inventory as a result of this quality management initiative? Quality management relates to cost accounting measures. We have to see how our operations are doing, so it relates to that. It's closely related to human resource management. When you try to put in place a quality management system, you have to consider the idea of unions being involved and whether there's going to be pushback from employees, even if they're union or non-union, whether there's going to be pushback from employees in terms of what you're trying to tell them to do in terms of quality improvement. Sometimes it may seem like extra work. You're telling me to do my day-to-day work, and now I have to think about quality improvement as well. So which one should I be thinking of when I'm doing my day-to-day work? You think about research and development. Quality management is very much involved in building quality into the production system, building quality into the product. So product design is a way of impacting quality of products. Engineering process design is involved in the same way. Information systems can help you track day-to-day metrics of quality and also are able to give you longer-term feedback in terms of what customers are getting from your products in a long term. Analytics is the field that takes all of the data that you get from customers, as well as from the supply chain metrics, as well as from quality metrics within the organization, and uses that to say that these are the relationships between what we're doing, the actions that we're taking, and how it's showing up in terms of quality metrics. So as you can see, quality management has a link with all the different functions that you can think about in an organization, in a company. So just to give you an idea of two kinds of process improvement initiatives, quality improvement initiatives, continuous improvement initiatives, whatever you want to call them. The one that is popular is nowadays is Six Sigma. So this has been popular since the 80s. Motorola is the company that started using this idea of Six Sigma, and then GE is the company that popularized the idea of Six Sigma. So what is the main focus of Six Sigma? It starts off with the idea of reducing variation. It starts off with the idea that variation in any product, any process is not a good thing. If you can reduce variation to a great extent without getting into too much detail of what Six Sigma actually, where the name comes from, it's talking about reducing variation to a very great extent. And it's a comprehensive approach because it talks about all the different processes focusing on making improvements toward reducing variation. The other approach that's popular is the approach that became popular as a result of Toyota. So the idea of lean management, and the idea of lean being that you take out all of the waste in the process. So the idea there is focus on reduction of waste, start from that, and waste is defined briefly as anything that a customer would not pay extra for. So anything that the customer would not be willing to pay extra for is waste. So the main focus of lean process improvement initiatives is reduction of waste. So as you can see, there are many different companies who are adopting these initiatives. And these are companies that are multinational. These are companies that you may be familiar with. They're adopting different initiatives. They're adopting different combinations of different initiatives. So what is popular in the US is currently the idea of Lean Six Sigma, combining the idea of reduction of waste with the idea of reduction of variance and calling it Lean Sigma or Lean Six Sigma. So to close this idea of quality management and quality management initiatives, what you can see hopefully from this lesson is that quality philosophers gave us the principles on the basis of which companies should be thinking about total quality management, the idea that quality should be front and center for everyone in the organization. And what have companies done? They have adopted these principles, but putting them in these sets of practices, these bundles of practices that we call quality management initiatives, quality management programs, continuous improvement initiatives.